Hello, everyone, and welcome to our favorite top 100 superhero movies list, part 15. It is the end of this epic saga we've been doing. I'm Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my sidekick Austin. And whatever it takes tonight, I've carved out the time. We're gonna finish it.
We're gonna do it no matter what it takes.
I swear to God, I'm very
I
excited.
tell you what.
Very excited to be to the top 10 now, and I hesitate saying this because we always find ways to be more long-winded than we intend to, but I assume that the majority of the movies on both of our lists, Austin, will be things that we've already talked about some, so they won't require as much discussion. And also, I think my top 10 is probably pretty predictable. We had one guy who I didn't actually check it next to my list. I think we have one guy who I think might have nailed my entire 10.
When Robert sent me a guess for your top five, and then I said, "That's great. Now do me," and he really struggled with it. So
Yeah, I know at least two that just absolutely have to be on your list, but you've kind of surprised me with some things that you've just left off your top 100 entirely. And then there's also those movies that we've been at this for so long, really taking our time with this that because to be fair, we've actually been pretty consistent getting these out pretty frequently. We've just really been taking our time with it. So I don't remember a lot of where your placements were with things. But I'll get back to that in a second. I want to remind everybody that we have a form set up for you guys to submit your top 50 favorite superhero movies of all time. We didn't want to make everybody do the insane exercise we're doing and have to come up with 100. I'm sure a lot of you guys would have been able to do that, but we're going to just do 50. And I guess our talk, Austin, was if we get enough submissions, we might turn it into a top 100 out of the 50.
yeah, I already have enough that I can make a top 100. It's just like the bottom ones are like maybe like one or two people voted on.
Okay, cool. And I've set the deadline for this now to next Monday so that Austin can start compiling everything after this. So now you officially have a week to get them in. Now you got to get rolling with it. You actually, because you've had all this time where I've been like, oh yeah, by the way, don't forget that's there. But I mean, don't worry about it. You got plenty of time. Now you've only got a week, okay, 7 days. So get crack-a-lacking on that.
Yeah, I think we got 5 in today. I was like,
cool.
oh, nice. Yeah, I was looking through some of those.
I'll make sure to post about it again once or twice more before next week, just to remind everybody to get those in. And then Austin will compile those again like we did with the top 50 DC and Marvel character lists. You guys know the drill by now. This has turned into a thing we do. And then Austin and I'll probably ask you to come on with me for that one, Austin. I may not do that alone.
Since, I mean, it makes sense since we did this together.
I was going to say, you've been a part of this thing since the very beginning. And we'll try to do that next month sometime. I don't know how long it'll take Austin to get that together and put together his one of his epic PowerPoints. So,
well, I did the other ones in an evening, so I can probably knock that out in a night or two.
Cool. So we'll just figure out a good time to do that. And then go ahead and start thinking about, we're not going to set up the form yet, but go ahead and start thinking about your 50 worst superhero movies also, because we'll be jumping into that not too long after this. Austin and I will need some time to get our list together, and I know Austin wanted to watch a few movies, so we won't jump on that just immediately. I won't be like the next week or anything, but probably a month or two. We'll start another series like this, and since that will only be 50, we had several reasons for not wanting to do 100 with that. You start to get some weird bleed over if you go into 100 worst superhero movies, and I could make that list, but that was where Austin felt like for him that was even maybe a little bit too far. So that won't take as long. It won't be the 19 hours or whatever this has been, but
that'll just be half of it.
How Bag counted up the hours that we've been at this series. What did he say? Do you remember?
I think he said it was at 23 hours.
For this, because he did it for the history videos and for the whole saga of the 50 DC Marvel ones too. He was counting all the hours up.
Yeah, I think he combined those and this all together, and it was like 50 hours, I think, is what it was.
That's ridiculous. What are we doing? What are we doing with our lives here,
I don't
Austin?
know. What is everyone listening doing with their lives?
It's a good point.
I
Yeah,
hope playing a video game or writing or something, not just focusing on this.
yeah.
Driving
Well,
people.
that's part of why I do the live stream thing now. Is for me personally, I really like to listen to long form content when I'm like doing chores and working on stuff in the house and
Oh, same here.
driving whatever I'm doing. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, when we're broadcasting, this is all we're able to do, Austin. But other people can be multitaskers.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
So it's
exactly.
not quite as pathetic if you're listening to it as it is are creating it, I suppose.
You're just sucking up to the audience because they're your boss. I know.
Bob the Hunt, if you do 100 worst ones, at the bottom would be ones that were on your best list. See, for me, I think I could avoid that pretty easily, but that was a worry Austin had.
Yeah, I feel like I would definitely hit that point.
So I forgive the preamble and making you guys wait even longer for the top 10, but I thought it would be smart for us to just very quickly rattle down the list as it is already, and we won't stop to talk about any of the movies now. We've already done that. But Austin, I wanted to do this at the start so that it would be more fun to try to guess what our top tens would be, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
that this will be a very listenable stream for anybody that didn't want to have to go through the entire 15-part saga. So if you listen to just this one, you'll actually get the entire 100 from both of us. You just won't hear any of our reasoning and discussion about those movies besides the top 10. So
Mhm.
Austin, I'll let you go ahead and go first if you want to.
Okay.
Just rattle down your 100 to your 11 and remind everybody what your movie choices were, and no explanation
No,
whatsoever.
but just know I'm feeling disgust in myself because I already hate my list, and I would change so much about it.
There's a few things. There's more than a few things I would probably change on mine as well at this point. You know, it's that thing I always talk about, Austin. We're just not the same person day to day. Like we did this too long ago.
No, like there's movies that are on here that I would take off. But oh well, we can't go back.
I think I maybe
We're
have
in
that
it.
too. We should probably also mention, just for anybody that hasn't been listening but will hear this, that there are some movies that might sound weird that we decided technically count for as superhero movies that we have had on our definitive list for the Rewind Commentary Project, and some of those things show up in our list. And then Austin grandfathered in Transformers and GI Joe, which we don't have on the official list, and we won't be necessarily doing those on the commentary project. He's got a pretty good. He's winning me over a little bit on this. Austin's got a pretty because at first I was like, "What are we doing?" But Austin's got a pretty good uh, argument for that with the way those things are associated with Marvel Comics and stuff. So you'll hear some GI Joe and some Transformers on Austin's list.
Yep. Okay, so my list, starting at 100, and I won't say the numbers. I'll just run down the movies to make it go a little faster. GI Joe the movie, The Incredible Hulk, Blue Beetle, Thor, Ant-Man, Deadpool, X-Men Days of Future Past, Transformers Dark of the Moon, Logan, The Return of Swamp Thing, Deadpool 2, G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra, Avengers Endgame, Steel, Hellboy 2019, Deadpool and Wolverine, G.I. Joe Retaliation, Swamp Thing, Hellboy, the 2004 movie, Toxic Avenger Part 3, Ghost Rider, Daredevil, Iron Man 2, Spider Man 3, Renfield, Captain America First Avenger, The Toxic Avenger Part 2, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, the original Punisher, like the 80s movie, Batman Under the Red Hood, Avengers, Spider Man Far From Home, Superman and the Mole Men, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, Batman vs. Dracula, Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, Barbarella, The Rocketeer, Batman and Robin, Superman Man of Tomorrow, Batman 89, Batman Returns, The Dark Knight Returns, both Part 1 and Part 2. They're listed here as both, but it's, combined. The Shadow, Doctor Strange, Blade, The Punisher, the Thomas Jane film, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, Avengers: Infinity War, The Dark Knight, the '90s Mario film, Transformers 1, Spider-Man 2, Moonwalker, The Incredibles, Toxic Avenger Part 4, Citizen Toxie, Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, Punisher: Warzone, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Batman Begins, Super, Spider-Man, Blade 2, X2, Birdman, Unbreakable, Hellboy 2, Captain America: Civil War, V for Vendetta, Donnie Darko, which neither of us understand why it counts, Superman 2, Howard the Duck, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Lone Ranger, Guardians of the Galaxy, Sherlock Holmes, Dredd, Hellboy the Crooked Man, Captain America the Winter Soldier, The Toxic Avenger, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, Hercules, X-Men First Class, The Return of Captain Invincible, Iron Man 3, Spider-Man Homecoming, Mystery Men, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Transformers the movie, and Darkman. Phew.
Good job, Austin. You didn't stumble over any of that. Well done.
Thank you.
So, Austin wasn't saying the numbers as you went along, so in case you came in late, he was indeed reading his list from least to favorite. That might not have been clear considering some of his picks.
Yes, he to top 10.
Yes, so. He had Logan all the way down at 92, and he had Super that high. Yes, it was
that just makes sense.
It was a list from least favorite to most favorite. The way you were, the tone of that, it sounded like a eulogy.
Exactly. Well, it was a eulogy for how bad I feel that Howard the Duck is so low. That actually hurts.
I was shocked by that for you.
I really wish I could go back and raise it. I don't know what I was thinking.
I did not include Howard the Duck.
For shame.
All right, so I will read mine down. I was gonna read the numbers, but I guess I'll do it the way you did it.
I mean, you can do the numbers. I was just worried I would get. I would trip up if I did the numbers.
Oh, sure. Fair enough. Yeah. I just thought it was easier to keep track of. But my number 100 is Superman 4. And then from there, I have the Marvels, Batman Ninja, Ang Lee's Hulk, The Phantom. I don't know if that would be on my list now. Batman Returns, Sky High, Defendor, Lego Justice League, Attack on the Legion of Doom. No, really, just watch it. It's funny. TMNT, Man of Steel, Ant-Man, Deadpool 2, the Power Rangers 30th Anniversary Special, Once and Always, the Batman vs. Dracula, Split, Age of Ultron, Dredd, Dick Tracy, Hellboy, the same one that Austin said. What was that, 04?
04, yeah.
The Shadow, Batman Two-Face, the Adam West animated movie, Constantine, Super Mario Brothers the movie, the animated one, Kick-Ass, Birdman, Captain America First Avenger, Iron Man 3, Hellboy 2, Iron Giant, we've got it listed, Darkman, Ninja Turtles 2, Amazing Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Batman The Long Halloween, that's too high, Superman Man of Tomorrow, Mega Man, Big Hero 6, The Rocketeer, Wonder Woman, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, The Wolverine, Blade, Blade 2, The Suicide Squad, the Lego Batman movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, X-Men from 2000, that's real high, Chronicle, The Dark Knight Returns, I'm now at my number 50 spot, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the 95 movie, Daredevil, Deadpool, and the Wolverine. Remember, this is a favorites list. Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Deadpool, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the first Raimi Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Sin City, Unbreakable, Avengers Endgame, Return of Captain Invincible, Danger Diabolic, Doctor Horrible, Turtles Forever, Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, Batman Under the Red Hood, Avengers, The Crow, The Mask of Zorro, Batman the movie, the Adam West movie, the Powerpuff Girls movie is my 29, Watchmen, X-Men First Class, Spider-Man Homecoming, Iron Man, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, Infinity War, Captain America Civil War, I'm at 20 now, Incredibles, Black Panther, The Batman, Return of the Cape Crusaders, the first Adam West animated movie, the Lego movie, X-Men Days of Future Past, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Mask, Batman Forever, yeah I know, and Superman the movie.
I like the parts of your list started to rhyme.
Yeah, I got real Dr. Seussy there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Austin, it is finally time to count down our top 10, and I guess we'll go traditional and just go back and forth as we have been, starting with you. I thought about having each of us count our list down separately, but it'd be a long time for one person talking, so I guess we should just keep going back and forth the way we have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we are basically jumping straight to your number 10, because we talked about it last time. My number 10 is Superman the movie.
We had him, it almost cracked your, or it did crack your top 10, and it almost cracked mine.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about, I spent the whole time complaining about the one thing I don't like about that movie, as it was my number 11.
But what is your number 10?
Yeah, and I mean, if there's anything else you wanted to weigh in with that, Austin.
No, we talked about it last time, and people made fun of us, where they were like, you say that now, but you're going to talk about that movie for 20 minutes next show. So, nope, what is your
Austin's a man of integrity. My number 10 is Logan.
Oh, okay. I expected that to be a little higher. I'm a little surprised.
Yeah. Once again, a lot of this has so much to do with how often I put it on, and Logan's not a movie that I go back to a ton.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to break your top 5, but I expected it to be close.
Be a little higher. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like a 6 or a 7.
That is a movie that I felt like I had been waiting for since at least, solo Wolverine movies. It felt like the movie that Hugh Jackman had been wanting to make forever and finally got to do that. I love the modern Western take. That movie, I will only watch that in black and white when I can help it, Austin. I think that's one of those few things that has been released with the black and white version that didn't feel pretentious and just felt the way it should have been released in the first place. I wish they'd had the guts to just put it out that way, especially because it feels a lot more stylistic and weirdly, in kind of a surreal way, more futuristic that way. Because it's supposed to be based, admittedly real loosely on Old Man Logan, and not that book is black and white, but that's a real stylish, heightened kind of book, and I like the juxtaposition of the relatively grounded, quote unquote realistic story it's telling, with a more, kind of stylish look. So I wish they'd stuck with the black and white, but they should have done that.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually never seen the black and white version.
Yeah, all the shadow work and like the light choices just work really nicely with that palette. And then my being the big Xavier fan I am, it was just a big treat to me that he is the main supporting X-Man in that. And I think that story is wonderfully tragic. It really got me in the theater. I was kind of surprised by how much of an emotional response I had with that. I was kind of gutted by it first time out, and that was not a thing that very many of these things, in the superhero genre have been able to do to me before. And I also really love just how standalone it is, and that it's I'm not that distracted by how it doesn't really fit in any clear continuity, because it's just so good I don't care. And it's kind of fun that it just tells the story it wants to tell. And it's fun to start breaking down how it doesn't fit anywhere, but that doesn't affect my enjoyment of it.
I mean, it's so vague. Like, is there really much that separates it there, or sorry, like that makes it so it can't fit with anything?
Well, the main thing is it can't be like a lot of
Oh, because
people
no
think it
mutants have been
is.
born.
Yeah,
Okay, forgot about that.
that's the big thing is that it can't fit with Days of Future Past.
Okay, I forgot about that part of it.
Yeah, that's the big thing, and also one of the best child actor performances in history.
Yeah, Daphne Keene's really good in that.
And I never cared about X-23, and I was like, someday they'll do that. She's popular in comics, and they did her like the last way you would expect. Austin, what is your number 9, sir?
My number 9 is Iron Man.
I
Um,
thought that might be a little higher on your list.
no, it's funny. That was quite a bit lower on my list, and then I rewatched it, and I had like just a really great viewing of that early on last year.
I think I have it a little too low. I had it at 25.
hmm No, it was really refreshing, especially with how things have been with the genre going back to it, where it was like, oh yeah, we used to make like movies that adapted this stuff.
Well, we talked about this a lot when I hit it, so we won't take too long on this. But one of the things that's interesting and fun going back to it now is it was both really innovative and fresh at the time, and also feels very quaint now.
Mhm. No, exactly.
But not like a dated. It's not fun to watch this kind of way. In more of a, I kind of wish we could get back to the feel of that. Where it's both like it's real character driven and about something, and at the same time feels like it's supposed to just be a fun spectacle movie.
Yeah,
It's not
and
self serious about it.
mhm.
It's like the antithesis of a BVS.
Yeah, and I think for me, like I think we talked about this with uh maybe Iron Man 3 when it came up. But like I think the first Iron Man is probably still Downey's best performance as the character. Like he's really good in it. Um the third act gets very silly, but like in a very comic book way, so like I kind of don't care. It's not enough to really drag that film down for me. Um and the way they adapt his origin into that film is just so good. Uh I also said when we did Iron Man 3, like those movies are so they go back and forth for me, and I think finally I settled on like Iron Man 3 is more of what I want from an Iron Man film, but it's also very like muddled, while Iron Man 1 is just kind of perfect at what it's doing.
Yeah, well, and right up there with Batman Begins, I think it's kind of a perfect origin movie.
Yeah, I think Iron Man is probably my favorite origin film, at least for the big two.
And it's one of the best introductions to a character that a lot of people seeing it for the first time didn't appreciate. Like what a success that is at turning people fans into a character they never thought they'd care about.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was, I knew that character from 90s Spider-Man where he's like a giant loser as a kid, and that movie kind of blew me away. I still remember seeing it in the theater. Like, it was a really big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I remember rolling my eyes going, I don't really care about that character outside of teams, and didn't know how he would even carry a movie.
hmm
Dan Schneider put in a $5 super chat and says, Logan is overrated. It was predictable and cliche in some places. Can't wait for the commentary with Austin. My fear is that Austin's going to sway me that direction with him. That's my fear.
I'm fully prepared to get raked over the coals by the audience for that film. I don't think it'll go that way.
That'll be
Personally.
fun, though.
We'll see.
Wood Green Beanie just put in a $5 super chat. Thanks very much. He says, I think people tend to forget the phase 1 problem of the weak third act.
Possibly. I think just because I don't know. I feel like the Incredible Hulk, Thor, and First Avenger are just kind of like whatever for like most people, so they don't really come up as much. Oh, and Iron Man too. And then Iron Man and Avengers have the best third acts of those of Phase One. So like,
Yeah, I think the third act thing is not. First of all, I don't think it's across the board.
mhm.
that they all have them, and Iron Man 2 is definitely the biggest culprit with that. Because for me, that kind of wrecks the whole movie. As much fun as certain aspects of it are, Incredible Hulk doesn't have that. I don't think. I mean, I haven't gone back to it in a long time. Its third act is probably not like the strongest part of it, but I don't feel like it just has this giant dip off or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. No, with Iron Man 2, it's Iron Man as well, I should say. Not Iron Man 2. Because everybody complains about Stan. Like, I do think it makes sense for, like, why it goes that route. It's just a little too over the top. But I think we talked about this when it came up on your list. That's a film that kind of has a different tone with each act, which is something that I also kind of like about it. Where the first act is very dramatic, and then the second act is very slapsticky, and then the third act is, much more like espionage superhero.
Yeah, then it becomes an actioner. That's, I mean, you could compare it to Donner Superman in that way.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, absolutely.
It's not epic in the same way, but I've never thought about that. But I think that's true.
Well, and I know Feige's talked a lot about, like, whenever they get into a MCU film, they all start by watching Superman the movie. So
I don't think they do that now.
I don't know that they do that now, but I know that was like a thing they talked about.
I was thinking about that just the other day. I was like, do they still do that? And if they do, they should pick a different movie just because it clearly isn't working on them anymore.
I think what they do now is they watch a TikTok explaining Superman the movie.
They read the Wikipedia page, that's it.
They get it in a 30-second chunk and they keep going.
Austin, my number 9 is the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
See, that was another one. Robert sent me what he thought your top 5 would be, and I was like, I would maybe take one of those off for Ninja Turtles. But okay.
That one was tough.
Yeah.
This is where, like, rewatchability and quality are just fighting each other so hard, because Ninja Turtles is probably... next to 89, the superhero movie I've seen the most times, and I find that movie infinitely rewatchable. And unlike, what's funny is when you compare, and this will make it sound like Turtles should be higher than it is. When you compare it to 89, like that movie, I've talked a lot about, and I've talked a lot about that movie. I've talked a lot about how I've like found more seams and issues and confusing things with 89 over the years, and I've got a lot more complaints about it, but I still love it. Ninja Turtles goes the other way, where like I have appreciated the story and characters and themes of that movie more and more over the years. Like when I first did a review of that, my first rewind on that, I called it a guilty pleasure. I wouldn't even say that now.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it just genuinely is a really good adaptation of that stuff. The Mirage comics.
Yeah, and I wish more things would handle adaptation that way, where you take a lot of the best and most iconic like moments in the stories from a thing, and then you meld it together to make a seamless but kind of new story. Because that doesn't feel like a hodgepodge of things. It's really
like Aquaman wants to be.
That's perfect. Yeah, that didn't make either of our lists.
No, it might make my next list.
It won't mine. I can tell you that right now. Like I like that well enough. But the sequel could.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that. I probably should watch all those new DC films I didn't watch.
Because a lot of them would make your list, I bet.
Yeah, same with like Morbius. I should probably watch.
And Ninja Turtles is also an important movie in that it shows how much you can innovate and inspire other movies with a small budget and being a relatively kind of independent film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's one of the most popular, not as mainstream things in superhero movies. I mean, like the property is mainstream, but like the way that movie is made is like it's not a B movie, but it's not a big budget blockbuster movie.
Mhm.
And that's one of
Nope,
the other things
right
that
on the verge. Like they do a good job of making that feel bigger than it actually is.
yeah, and there's so much grit to it, which is part of why it works so well because it should feel like that.
Yeah,
Being on
exactly.
the streets of New York and in the sewers, and it's all just real credible.
Mhm.
And then just what they pulled off with the animatronics is ridiculous.
I mean, they're amazing. Just don't
And
look in their mouths in 4K.
yeah, yeah, be careful about that because it will ruin the illusion, and it will also give you nightmares.
Yeah, exactly. Because you'll know that they're not just eating pizza.
And how easy would it have been for Shredder to be really silly and not menacing? Like,
Mhm. Oh, that's super easy. He's basically just Darth Vader in that movie. Which is also funny because, his whole
that's
thing is he
true.
like runs an arcade full of kids.
I'm sorry, I was distracted by a weird comment. Can you say the last thing you just said again?
I just said he's basically Darth Vader, which is really funny because he runs an arcade like full of kids with like a kid army.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like a lot of things I've been watching lately have been going back to the the family idea of Ninja Turtles and not even doing it quite as well.
Hmm.
What is your number 8?
My number 8
Is this the
is
weird one? Is this the?
no, no,
Oh,
not
okay,
yet.
okay.
This is not
Just
my curveball yet.
just to look on your face because I know there's a curveball in your 10.
No, my number 8 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, uh, which
That's about where I thought that would land.
mhm. No, I feel like that's probably like was an easy one to guess. I don't know. It's getting to a place where I have a hard time, honestly, like ranking 3, 2, and the Suicide Squad. Where like I feel like anything in my top 10 could be moved around like in any order. It doesn't really matter. But I don't know, man. It's getting really hard
Well,
with the last 3 gun films.
I've been real back and forth on what your one is going to be because I keep assuming it's a gun movie. I guess it's possible it's not, but like it could be the Suicide Squad. It could be Guardians 2 because
Hmm.
I know Guardians 2 is your favorite of those, and like I don't understand that, but
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I have a thing with Guardians 3 where I'm like, I feel like it it might be a little bit better than 2, but at the same time, I like 2 more. And a lot of that just is Kurt Russell. But
well, I've got so much of that on my list.
yeah,
I
well,
had Batman Forever at 12. Like that movie shouldn't be 12, but I that I will stand by.
mhm. No, absolutely. No, John still makes fun of me to this day because I saw Guardians 3 6 times the year it came out, and he won't stop making fun of me for it. But I don't. It was really refreshing seeing a Marvel film uh, that had like that level of stakes again, and just being like,
Yeah.
that well made and thought out
Is
again.
it that funny that you saw that a bunch of times in the theater? Like,
No, so I saw it. I don't know. I saw it 3 times in the theater and then 3 times at home, but I don't know. He just thinks it's really funny.
okay.
I don't know. John's an evil person.
I mean, I don't think that movie is nearly as good as the first one, but
Hmm.
like, you latch on what you latch on to. Like, I probably saw that 3 times in the theater.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean it's really good. Once again, I think it has one of the better Marvel villains with the High Evolutionary. I think the way it handles Rocket's backstory is all really good, and was like exactly what I wanted walking out of the first movie. Where I was like, I don't want it to be X2, but like I really hope the second one is about like whoever made Rocket, and we kind of flash back to that kind of the way that that did. So it was really nice, finally getting that with 3. And like I remember when it was coming out, I had this gut feeling where I was like, I'm really worried Star-Lord's gonna get shortchanged, like, with how Gunn's talking about it as being, very much Rocket's movie, and, like, he was really the, main character of the trilogy, and then he's not in any way, like, it's still very much about him, and he gets a ton to do, and just I think it's just the perfect ending for that trilogy, like, every character gets the ending that they should.
Yeah, I mean, some of it helps. Some of what helps that, I guess, is in order to finally tell Rocket's story, he's incapacitated through most of that movie.
Mhm.
And so that gives everybody else time to shine, and it makes him like while we're like developing his backstory and getting to know him in a way we've never been allowed to before. He's also kind of the MacGuffin of that movie.
Mhm. No, it absolutely is. Which is like the one place where it kind of goes back to one in a way where like you have like a MacGuffin story again. It's
Yeah, it's
just
true.
obviously, like more character focused with it being one of the characters.
Yeah, and it's not an object everybody's after, even as a person. It's
Mhm.
it's the person everybody's trying to save or kill.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I need to watch that again. It's been a little while. A lot of these newer movies I just have not really have taken the time to sit down and to spend a lot of time with.
Hmm.
Uh,
I mean, that's fair.
I've probably seen that maybe three times,
Hmm.
probably including. Well, no, I guess you and I haven't watched it together yet, have we? Because
No.
we did a double feature before that came out on the first two, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Nicholas Bodo says High Evolutionary saying stuff like "There's no God, that's why I stepped in" gets me excited for Gunn's take on Lex. I still think that's like maybe one of the
Sure.
best lines that any of the villains get in the MCU. Like that's such a great part.
Yeah, and I also like retroactively looking back on that whole trilogy, how it's all of a piece and has a real particular, especially comedic sensibility, but each of them also has its own tone.
Hmm. When I was saying to Robert the other day, like I remember when Doctor Strange 2 was coming out. Elizabeth Olsen was like, "This film's very much like Temple of Doom, like it's dark in that kind of way." And then you watch it, and it's not really like it's obviously going for like an Evil Dead thing. I think Guardians 3 is like the modern Temple of Doom. Like it's way like weirdly darker than the other two,
Yeah.
and has like a similar kind of like slave thing happening that the heroes have to save at the end, and it's very just kind of like oppressive in that way. And I've talked to people who have a hard time with the third film because of that, which I can understand.
Yeah.
But I think especially by the end of that film, where it basically becomes like a celebration of life, like I think it kind of makes up for that, and you need that darkness for that to really hit.
Well, I think that's where this thing I have with having to rewatch gun movies before I appreciate them comes in,
Hmm.
because that movie gets lighter and sillier every time I see it.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Like that was I talked earlier about Logan being kind of a gut wrenching experience for me. I had that with that movie too, at least to some degree. And then you get to the end, and it's it ends on such a hopeful, light-hearted note. I didn't even know what to do with that because so much of the rest of it felt like, as you said, oppressive. And then the more I see it, the more I'm like, some of the goofiest crap in those movies is in that movie, and that's clearly by design. It also doesn't feel like it's quote unquote trying to subvert expectations and having the third movie be the darkest one, because that's not a Star Wars, and that's not exactly a story we're telling in three acts. Like it's maybe individual there's like individual through lines with character arcs that kind of go in between the three of them, but it's not plotted like a trilogy.
Hmm.
And that helps, and it feels kind of natural that that's where you would finally get all that stuff with Rocket. It's also more effective if he stays a mystery longer.
Hmm. Yeah, and then thematically it works where the first one is like a guy and his mom The second is a guy and his dad, and then the third one is, a guy and his son, essentially. Not literally, but like that's
Yeah,
obviously the family dynamic.
and that's why we don't lose Star-Lord too hard.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
We also like kind of run off and take our time with those movies in developing like Gamora's relationship with her sister and her background too. So it's not like Rocket's totally singled out like that.
Mhm. No, I think everyone, like, three might have the best balance, like, of all the characters. Considering there's, a lot more characters. Like, one might technically, but even then, like, I feel like one is also laying seeds before it's, like, fully getting into characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think three might technically have the best balance, but I'd have to actually, like, think about that a little bit more.
Like I think as a family dynamic, you could argue that your real triad of main characters, even though Star Lord is like at the top, like it's the whole thing is his story before it's anybody else's, but like it's really like a father and a mother and their son until you get the third movie and then it gets weird because we've lost Gamora and now we've got the other Gamora. But for forgetting that, like when you're looking at two, it does kind of feel like. And then Drax is like the weird uncle, and
Yeah.
there are clear parallels you can make to the Adams family.
Hmm. No, exactly. But I do like
Like
that he kind of takes that.
Groot is Thing. Like, I never really thought about this, but there's a lot of Adams family in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, Groot's the baby. Um, it, um, no, I think Gunn does a really good job in that he kind of gets that wrench, with the Gamora thing. But I think he does a really good job of kind of changing it into then being, uh, about like breakups, and you kind of see like almost like a divorce thing between mom and dad. And there's some nice subtle stuff in that. There, like, there's a really nice Groot and Gamora moment. Um, where it's very much like a kid trying to approach his mom that's different in that way,
Mm-hmm.
not really a part of the family anymore.
And that's a dynamic I haven't thought about enough because I haven't seen it enough. But
Yeah, I've seen it 6 times, as John would say.
Austin, my number 8 is Superman 2, and that is largely because I think Zod is one of, if not the best villains ever put on film.
Hmm.
And we've talked about this a lot. Like, there's a lot of silly in that movie, and a lot of people won't even watch the Lester cut anymore because of the Donner cut. I don't have that. I like them both. The Donner cut is kind of an unfinished experiment and requires some Lester stuff to even like pad the thing out. So I'm not singling out the Donner cut, and I guess I'm kind of putting them together in 8. And I also think that it's possible this movie would still be this high even if that had never come out. For me, I don't
Yeah.
think that really sways it that hard. And Donner's first movie is definitely the actual better story. Like, it's the better movie. But Superman 2 is the one that I like to go back to more. And uh, is necessary to make that world feel more like a comic book world, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. When
And you
it
know me, I'm all about the Krypton stuff.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. And it has the greatest moment in any superhero film where he throws the S.
And that's why if you could only rank the Donner cut wouldn't even make Austin's list because you don't have the
Exactly.
cellophane as.
It'll make my bottom 50 just for taking the S out. But yeah, no, I like Superman 2 a lot. I think, like I said last time, when I first watched them, I liked it over the first one. But at this point, I would probably put one over it. But I also fully agree with what you're saying. Like, it is a much more like enjoyable, like entertaining. Like, if I was just to go, okay, I'm gonna throw something on, like it would probably be Superman 2. While Superman 1, like I gotta sit down and watch it.
Yeah, and there's more like weird silly stuff in that makes that's like part of why it's fun to watch.
Mhm.
Like I like talking about all the stuff in that movie that doesn't work.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a movie you love warts and all, right? Like it's that kind of a film.
Yeah, and like a lot of it is because of blemishes. Because you're like, how does that even happen? How do you even think to have Ursa talking in space? Like I don't even understand that. Just on the moon, like talking to men in spacesuits. How are they hearing her? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I was thinking more like Lois Lane jumping into Niagara Falls, but that as well, yeah.
Yeah, and that's
I
just
forget that that happened.
that's such an iconic scene. Like a lot of that stuff is burned in my brain from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And again, some of it's because it's just weird. Like I guess I have the same thing with that I do with '89, with just the surreal stuff.
No, absolutely. Do you have anything else to say about that one, or?
No, we talked about it some when you brought it up. I think so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I couldn't remember.
Okay, Austin, what is your number
My
7?
number 7 is The Mask of Zorro.
Yeah, we just gushed and gushed about that when we
Hmm.
did the rewind commentary. It's lower on my list just because of like my personal sensibilities and stuff. That's kind of more your thing in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of the missing link to the things I like.
Yeah, you're
It's like,
such an
oh yeah,
adventure guy. Oh yeah, because when we did that commentary, you were like, "Where has this been all my life? How did I miss it?"
yeah. Where I was like, here is all of these things that I love that are clearly looking at this film. I just never seen it. Uh, no, it's like it's kind of a perfect movie, and like I'm a little scared because I want to watch the sequel, but everybody hates it. So at the same time, I'm like, do I bother? I don't know.
Just wait until we do the commentary.
Yeah,
Some of
exactly.
these superhero movies that you don't want to see or you're on the fence about, like don't waste your time doing it now. You're gonna have to eventually.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Let's
I mean,
fast
yeah,
track
we.
it.
Oh boy, I think that's isn't that Ortsy and Kurtzman that did that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's some sort of hack.
It's part of the failing upwards. Yeah, failing upward saga.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, I mean, at the very least, I get a really good duology out of that in the second Puss in Boots film. Um,
That's also one of the more original and cool origin movies
mhm.
because you've got the legacy thing, so you're watching the end of one career and the beginning of another. So it's an origin movie at the same time as it feels like a legacy sequel to a thing that was never made. Which is neat because there had been a lot of Zorro movies before, so that's probably what they're thinking.
Yeah, that was my guess with it, is like that kind of meta thing of, we're rebooting it, but we're going to acknowledge that we're rebooting it. And done in like one of the most effective ways I've ever seen with that. And the only good legacy hero movie? Question mark. I think so.
There's just we talk about so many of these things. I'm just running back in my brain right now, trying to think of what else there even is that counts as that.
Like Ant-Man made my list, but I'm not exactly like
You're not over
yeah,
the moon about it. Yeah,
exactly.
no, that's true. That is a legacy movie. Um, yeah, we haven't done a ton of that in live action.
Hmm. I've done it a couple times with Marvel, and it's not been great. The worst being Captain Marvel. How they handle Marvel in that film sucks.
It'll be interesting to see if that shows up on Austin's 50 worst superhero movies.
Probably. It's so boring. What is your number
I was
7?
gonna say I'm struggling to remember what we talked about when we brought this up before. So
When we did a rewind on this not too long ago, so I figured we didn't have to talk about this one too much.
yeah, absolutely. My number 7 is lower than it would have been at one time. I've changed as a person, I guess, but my number 7 is The Dark Knight.
Oh, okay. I didn't think that would make your top 5, so
It didn't.
yeah, that was one.
at this
No, I'm
point.
thinking of something else that I said would TMNT would take its place. Never mind.
I have, as time has gone on, I felt weirder and weirder about the ending of that movie. And I will admit that Rises has something to do with that. And it isn't that Rises kills that movie. Like, I can still watch that in a vacuum, but it just made me question even more if the way that ends is really how that should have been handled. Never mind that Nolan and his brother seem to have a totally different philosophy on that whole thing by the time they made Rises. But it's still, very much top 10 material. That's also a movie that I used to watch all the time that I haven't gone back to in quite a while, but still really feels like a big event every time I go back to it. Like I can really easily put myself back in the movie theater with how wonderful that experience was, and just remembering how like big of a monumental game changer that whole thing was.
Yeah, I used to go back to the Nolan trilogy a lot in high school. I say trilogy. I mean, I watched Rises a little bit. I was like halfway through high school when Rises came out. Um, but I don't really go back to them much anymore. Like I'll watch them now and then. Like I think I probably watched them like twice over the last like 6 years maybe. But like I don't know, it's kind of weird.
Well, and you'll have that even more now that we've got the Batman, and that's so much closer to what you want.
Yeah.
Nicholas Bodo brought that up. He says Dark Knight is a great movie that kind of ages worse with time, especially after the Batman.
Hmm.
I hate that I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I mean, I have, kind of stuff like that with Nolan in general, but that's
Yeah,
definitely hurt his take on
I have
Batman.
the same thing. I've soured on him a little bit as a director, and I have. We've talked about this a lot, but one of my things with Nolan's take on Batman is he sees Batman as a guy that wants to eventually be able to hang up the cape, and that's just fundamentally not how I see that character, and not what it seemed like he was in Begins. I think maybe the biggest misstep in that movie is making it all about Batman looking for a loophole to get his girlfriend back.
Hmm.
I and it seemed fine when I first saw it, but just the more the more time has gone on, that's kind of the big thing I don't like about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, ugh. I feel like all I did was trash Dark Knight when I listed it, so I'll just
Well,
leave
it's
it
hard
at
not to
that.
just
But
focus on negatives because I used to have this so much higher. Like I used to put Begins and Dark Knight
you have to
like
justify why it's
why
lower.
it's lower. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. But
yeah.
so now I'm feeling like I've got to compensate by talking about things I love about that movie. But everybody knows what's great about the Dark Knight.
I mean, I
Um,
put Dark Knight at number 51, and my number 50 was the 90s Mario film. So,
everybody always raves about Ledger's performance, and of course he's wonderful. But it's it's not just about the performance, of course. It's also their take on the Joker. I've always found infinitely fascinating, and I
well, it goes
think
back to the 40, or sorry, not the 40s, the four original Batman films, where they're like really held up by their villain, I
yeah.
think, where it's like, Ledger is so good that that movie like goes up a couple notches because of that.
But for me, even though Batman gets a little bit lost in the shuffle with it, everybody's always, a lot of people complain about that. It does elevate his character some also
Mhm.
because uh, he's got such an interesting challenge in thinking that he's cracked the code on uh, like how the criminal mind works, and then he meets a guy that doesn't have that doesn't have a real motivation beyond the whole wanting to watch the world burn thing, I and then ironically he actually has a very deep motivation, which is uh, to prove to everyone that the that society is kind of a sham,
Mhm.
and it it got me thinking in real complex ways about that character at large in a way I hadn't before. Like, I don't think that's a complete reinvention of that character. I think it's just fine tuning and bringing some things to the fore that were always, or at least often, kind of at the core of the Joker. The big question being kind of just like with Batman, is he a crazy person for doing what he's doing? And the Ledger version, as much or more than any of them, is a character that I don't actually think is psychotic.
Yeah, no, I agree with
And
that.
that's so interesting. I also like their Two-Face more than you do.
I mean, I like their Harvey Dent. I just don't like their Two-Face.
It is unfortunate that that wasn't just saved for a third movie like it almost was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Bob the Hun, $5 super chat. Maybe Nolan is responding to backlash. A lot of people really thought the ending was immoral and teaching a bad lesson. Rises might be a response. It does kind of watch that way, and if so, I kind of wish that he just stuck to his guns. But
Interesting. I've never heard that. The big complaint I always heard was that it's very tacked on, which I don't agree with. Like, I do think it does a good enough job, like, explaining why that part is there. I just don't really like that part. But yeah, I've never heard anybody say that it's like immoral. Interesting. I mean, I guess the phone thing I hear more, but that's more now.
yeah, but what he's talking about, I think, is the big lie that they tell to the
Hmm.
city
Yeah,
about
no, that's what I thought.
um I'm also just saying this out loud to get my brain back in this mode because I haven't thought about some of this in a while. But the idea that the city will crumble if people realize that uh, the guy that they thought was their savior in Harvey Dent, the hero with the face, uh, you went dark as fast as he did, and fell off the cliff the way he did, both literally and figuratively. Um, and then Rises does this kind of weird 180 where it's really judgmental to Gordon for that choice. When the end of Dark Knight kind of plays it like this really clever, smart thing that's like their only way out of it.
Hmm.
And for me, it was always just a weird attitude thing. Like the whole, and also just laid on too thick and Rises, the whole like, plunging his hands into the filth thing. And I'm like, where is any of this coming from?
I mean, Christopher Nolan self-analyzing and speechifying. Come on now, Cap. That's not true.
But yeah, I do think it's kind of a big question mark as to whether he's responding to an audience complaining about that. I mean, considering that that movie was beloved and was treated like the greatest thing that ever happened ever, or if he felt that way more as time went on.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a big fan of Nolan, but at the same time, I would be interested to talk to him about like, that kind of divide.
It also strikes me as, now we're talking about Rises again, but it also strikes me as a somewhat desperate attempt to find some new drama in a thing that he seemed kind of done with and didn't necessarily want to make any more of.
Hmm.
And so it's hard to say if that's even a like moral consideration on his part, and how much of it is just he's looking for drama someplace, because a lot of the drama in that movie feels really artificial to me.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I've also like kind of always had that with the ending of The Dark Knight. Like, I think that choice is kind of dumb, but it's like a whole other thing. I think I talked about this too when I brought this up.
See, I didn't used to, and then as time's gone on, I felt a little bit weirder about it.
Hmm.
And for me, it's not even a moral thing, so much as, and like I think the end of that movie plays it as, kind of endearing, where it's like, well, no, we have to, give people hope in their heroes, and the loophole is he had a psychotic break, so he wasn't really the same person. And I think that's a somewhat fair argument. The problem I have with it is just the idea that, uh, like, the whole city would completely fall apart over that. I just don't know how much I buy that. Like, you start getting into, like, artificially trying to make the city feel more like a character than it is.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I feel like there's multiple ways they could have gotten out of that. The ending of the Dark Knight to me feels like Nolan was like, "This is the ending I have in mind, and I'm just gonna write. Like, I'm going to do that." Like, I don't fully think it makes sense that that's where they would go, but it's whatever.
Yeah, it's been too long since I've thought about some of this stuff.
Hmm.
Because I guess some of it was also, uh, like it's a cool cliffhanger. Like it's an exciting moment when it's like we'll chase him because he can take it. But then, uh, is it? I guess this is maybe more of the thing, Austin. Is it really believable that people buy that Batman did that?
Hmm. I mean, there was just like a killer clown blowing everyone up 5 seconds ago, but no, Batman did it.
It's like, like Batman falling on a sword like that's real heroic, but it's like, if you think about it for 5 seconds, like what to the people of Gotham is his motivation for doing that?
Hmm. I mean, Batman did kill Two-Face, so Gordon's response should be, "Well, you just murdered this man." Uh, but
I missed a super chat from Chewbacca's lover. He says we
oh,
need to do a Batman that grew up with Mask of Zorro.
I mean, at this point, he's going to be growing up with Puss in Boots too.
Yeah, that would have been a good thing to do 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, it is a missed opportunity, but I guess we also didn't really have a new Batman at that point.
Yeah, and then the question is just like with the rights of that movie, because it's not a Warner Brothers movie.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, who is that? Is that Sony? I'm just not sure.
It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember. Is it? I'll look it up real quick.
I mean, I can probably find it because I have Letterboxd
I
open.
thought it was like Legendary Pictures or something.
TriStar, which
TriStar. There you go.
I think that's Sony, isn't it? Yeah,
Oh, okay. So you're right. I didn't even know that.
yeah. It's like Columbia.
Dan Schneider, $5 super chat. Thanks, man. The ending of Dark Knight was clearly supposed to be him being Batman Forever, and more in line with comics Batman. Rises was clearly a sharp right turn. Yeah, good call, because it's like he spends the whole movie trying to, again, find a way to be able to give that up without, um, feeling like he's doing his family or the city a disservice, and then the end of the movie suggests that he's not going to ever be able to do that. Especially when you have the Joker with the line, "We're going to be doing this forever," and then you get to Rises, and we've just dropped all of that. It's the kind of move that you would think somebody else taking over the franchise would make, and it's made so much weirder by the fact that it's the same team. But I've talked about all this before, and when it was much fresher in my mind. Austin, we got to get through these. What is your number 6?
We're doing bad at moving through this.
That's all right. Go ahead.
My number 6 is the Suicide Squad.
Okay, that is lower than I expected. I thought there was a chance that was even at the top.
Yeah, you were saying it like a little bit ago that you thought it could be my number 1. Uh, like I said, I mean, it's all arbitrary at this point. Anything could be anywhere, but um, no, I mean, the Suicide Squad is a film I love deeply. That and my number 5 went back and forth a lot too. Um, but it's like the only, sorry, it's not like, it is the only DC EU film that I liked. I almost called it the DCU. I wanted to make sure I got that right. Um, and it's such a perfect adaptation of Ostrander. In
And
that,
I had to see it 4 times before I had any appreciation for it.
hey, you at least liked Starro when you first watched it.
No,
That's
I
at least
did.
something.
I did.
Because you can't hate Starro. He's Starro.
Yeah, a lot of it was just I was not in the mood for that movie when that came out.
Hmm.
Like I was real over anti-hero superhero movies, like really hard.
Hmm. No, I mean that's absolutely fair.
And just some of the kind of like dark comedic sensibilities with that movie were uh you know not things I really appreciate that much. And
Hmm.
it took me a bit to find everything else to latch onto, which I finally did. But I,
Yeah, and I mean I feel like this is a film I've talked about a lot on the channel, so I won't go into it too
and
much.
we've done
But
a
like,
rewind commentary on this too. That was actually the
yeah,
first one you and I did together.
yep, exactly. But yeah, I think it does like a really good job capturing the feel of a comic. Like you have stuff where Harley's like subplot in the middle feels like a tie-in issue. Just I don't know. It's one of the most comic booky films I think ever made. It's really impressively done. Like it looks great, and I mean, obviously the story behind it's just insane of how we got that, and even
Yeah,
more insane now.
yeah, really insane now. Well, and it's crazy how like packed in that is with material without feeling overstuffed.
Yeah, and it's one of the only comic book films like this that I've seen and have been like, I kind of don't even need more. Like, if we don't make another Suicide Squad film, I'm kind of okay because I have the definitive Suicide Squad film, and it's the first time I've ever really felt that. Like, if they announce one, I'm not going to complain, but like, I kind of just don't really need more. Like, it is like everything Ostrander boiled down to its roots.
Yeah, like it's a really good story on its own, but it's also a good proof of concept. It's like this is genuinely what that property is supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
It does
And
still have the Suicide Squad kind of saving the world thing.
it's at least small enough where it's them just saving a city. Like that's one thing that I really like is that they take Starro, who's a Justice League villain, and make him a Suicide Squad villain, where he's not really a comic Starro. Like he's not really a conqueror. He's just like a tortured beast, really. At the end of the day, that's angry at the world after this, and will probably take over the city. And if he tries to leave, he will probably get killed by the other DC heroes. Um, like I don't think he would get far outside of that city anyways. So like it helps I think that they really just saved that town.
Yeah, that's true. And it's not like most of them don't have their like rah rah. I want to be a superhero moment. Like it's really just what Polka Dot Man.
Yes, and I've heard people complain that his death is too comedic, but for me it's not comedic as much as it's like he finally achieved the thing that he wants and gets to die in that moment because it's kind of all downhill after that. Like he's still,
It
in a
feels
really
earned. I mean,
awful
it feels
situation.
built up for that.
Yeah,
You can look at it as comedic, but I think you also
yeah,
have to uh,
kind of plays
look at
both
it
ways.
in the context of like what we've developed the whole way and from his perspective. So like none of that is funny to him.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean he got to live out on the peak of his life, or go out on the peak of his life, I should say.
That's also just a really good looking movie.
No, and I love how like it uses text in that film, like over the screen.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's so good. That's in like another part where I'm like, it just really feels like a comic book brought to life.
Yeah, and it's crazy how lived in that world feels because it's technically DCEU, but it feels like it's kind of its own standalone thing that
Mhm.
is just a really weird eclectic assortment of characters in a DC universe all brought together with a like with a pretty lived in feeling world that like you
Mhm.
said you don't really have to go back in and see any more of.
No, I mean it already feels like a reboot. Like it doesn't feel connected to anything.
Yeah, and you don't need to see any of the mainstream heroes to kind of get a sense of what they'd be like, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, and I know at some point he wanted to put Superman in that film, which would maybe have been interesting now, but I'm glad that that didn't happen.
Yeah, I am too. And that's kind of against the nature of it, like the point of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I feel like Superman was there to have that like classic comic image of the Starro face on Superman.
Oh, sure.
Uh,
That makes sense.
I
Well,
feel like if Superman was in there, he would have that at some point.
and like you could have done that where you had some stand-ins for major heroes that just had stars on their faces, and that's all we did with them. Like we just cut to them, but
Hmm.
you didn't really need that. Bob the Hunt put in a $5 super chat when we were talking about Dark Knight. He says, for a lot of people, it's not just Batman being unfairly blamed, but that Harvey Dent tried to kill a kid and then gets made a hero and is praised.
I mean, yeah, that's a good thing. I don't see the issue.
I mean, yes,
I
it
mean,
is. It
yeah.
is certainly a conspiracy
Hmm.
that they're creating at the end, and you can certainly talk ins and outs, the ethics of it, but and not to talk in circles. But like I said, the weird thing for me was just more the attitude of it, where like we have this like crescendo of triumphant music that is really suggesting that like Gordon is a heroic character in this moment.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Along with Batman, that like they're really doing the only thing they can do, and they're preserving a character that technically was maybe arguably already dead, and replaced with Harvey Dent, or sorry, replaced with Two Face. And then Rises says, no, that's not what it was.
Yeah. I'm glad you did Nolan trilogy.
But I guess I'm also I don't know. We'll talk about all this eventually when we have to do these again. But I guess I'm kind of defending it while simultaneously I'm saying it's the the big thing that's kind of dropped that as not being as great in my eyes too. So
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. What is your number 6?
my number 6 is RoboCop.
Oh, okay. I think that's the first one that Robert said would be on your top 5 that he's wrong about, and I questioned it too, but I was like, "No, there's a chance."
It nearly was. It was tough. I Yeah, RoboCop's such a weird movie because it wasn't that long ago. Well, I guess now it was, but like I don't know, a decade ago, I didn't even really care much about that movie. Like I'd seen it when I was a kid and didn't remember much about it, and it just wasn't really my thing. And then I had this like almost religious experience watching it and writing about it when I did the rewind, because it's such a brilliant science fiction satire, and it's one of the best examples of the like robot answering the "what makes a man" question, which is made even more interesting in uh, having a robot made out of the remnants of a man. So you get this wonderful question all the way through, kind of like you do sometimes with vampires, of like, is there a soul in there?
Hmm.
And I still say it counts as a superhero movie.
Absolutely. Just as Inspector Gadget does by association.
Well, if that does, then that can go on my worst list. But no, I haven't
Hey,
seen that in a million
Inspector
years.
Gadget 2 could have made our top 10.
Have you said RoboCop yet?
No,
I didn't think so.
no, I have not.
Yeah, I've been wondering where that's going to wind up for you. Also, you didn't have RoboCop 2 anywhere, did you?
No, I don't like RoboCop 2. I know that's I think kind of a hot take for people because people like RoboCop 2.
I mean, that's
I
divisive. Like a lot of people don't certainly, or
Yeah.
a lot of people have sort of like the Predator 2 thing with it, where like it's crazy, so it's great.
No, there's things I like about in RoboCop 2, but it also was 8,000 ideas and it's about none of them.
And
And
it's so much worse if you read the Miller comic.
oh, really? I still have to read that. I have it, but I haven't read it yet. No, I would maybe like RoboCop 2 also if it wasn't for being a sequel to RoboCop 1, which is, I mean, we'll get there on my list, but I love RoboCop. And 2 is mostly trash.
Um,
Although the game made me appreciate a little bit of that a little bit more, just because that
yeah,
game clearly loves RoboCop 2.
I gotta finally play that. I've got a computer that can run it now, so I'm gonna have to finally get that.
Oh yeah, I think you'll really dig it. You're RoboCop.
We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to it with you. What is your number 5, Austin?
My number 5 is Kick-Ass.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I adore Kick-Ass.
I guess I didn't realize you liked Kick-Ass that much. That's one of the movies that I couldn't place. I hadn't even been thinking about the fact that you haven't said that yet.
mhm. No, I feel like I've seen a few people guess, and none of them have been able to guess that Kick-Ass would make my top
The
5.
sequel will be on my top 50 worst superhero movies.
I can't say that it would make my worst. It's probably in that middle area, but it's not. It's not very good. No, I like the comics. I think the movie's a improvement on them. But it's God, maybe the superhero film I've seen the most. There was a period where like every time I was at my dad's house, we watched Kick-Ass. We watched it a lot. Um, I don't know. It's so perfect, and I feel like it's kind of in the grand scheme of things, like kind of slipped through the cracks. Like I feel like people don't really talk
It's
about
a
it
little
anymore.
forgotten now.
Yeah, and I
It
think
had
it's
its moment in the
unfortunate.
sun.
Hmm. No, exactly.
I'm going to argue that Deadpool is part of that problem.
And breaks my heart, but it probably is.
Do you agree with that? Not
Probably.
that they're doing anything like the same thing, but that was for a hot minute kind of the big superhero parody comedy thing, and like Deadpool has really eclipsed all of that.
Mhm. Yeah, probably. Which is funny because I know 2 didn't do especially well, but it was like the most pirated film of that year.
Well, that didn't feel like that also felt like a movie that didn't need sequels.
Yes, I agree with that. No, and I've talked to a lot of people like God, probably like maybe like around when the Fox buyout with Disney, where Matthew Vaughn was like my big I want him to do FF in the MCU. And a lot of people would throw it like it would be really cool if he got to do Spider-Man or X-Men. And I'm like, well, X-Men I already have. I don't really need him to do that again, like as a reboot. Like I feel like that's weirder. And I'm like, I kind of have like the perfect Spider-Man film under Matthew Vaughn with Kick-Ass. Like obviously, it's rated R and he's not a superhero, like super powered, but like that's kind of the best Spider-Man movie. In the way that people say with like Incredibles, with FF.
Yeah, you mean that he's a high school kid with like regular problems and
Yeah, and that it's not really a Spider-Man film, and like,
a lot of actions and consequences.
but like it's close. There's similar things about it that they're comparable. But
Well, he's kind of got a Harry Osborn.
mhm.
Like, there's definitely a lot of parallels. I'm sure I've broken those down before. I just don't remember doing that. But
No, the big thing that kind of throws that off is the Hit Girl and Big Daddy
yeah,
situation. But and I mean Nicolas Cage running around dressed as Dark Knight Batman, but doing an Adam West Batman voice is very amusing.
oh,
And
it's
obviously,
inspired. It's
yeah,
it's one of the smartest choices ever made in a comedy, I think.
mhm. Yeah, and it's his best superhero role. And I think it's a giant shame that Chloe Grace Moretz didn't have a better career than she did.
It really is.
'Cause she's wonderful.
Well, I mean, she made a lot of missteps in her career too. Like, why would you do a Carrie remake? Stop it.
Why would you do a Tim Story film in 2020?
Oh, I didn't even know about that. What is that?
It's the Tom and Jerry movie.
I didn't know she was in that.
Yeah, she's like the main actress in it.
Yikes. I'm sure that was great.
Yeah, I mean it's a Tim Story film. But yeah, Chewbacca's lover in the chat said that he thinks the comic is better. I like both. I think there's ways in which the comic is better, but overall, I prefer the movie.
Yeah, I do too. And then I couldn't even get through the second one.
Fair enough. The second one is really messed up. I don't know. Every now and then, I'm like, I should reread those. It's been a long time.
I think that movie is one of those rare cases where I don't want to say like dumbed down, maybe watered down is the right way to explain this, but in taking characters that were like intentionally deeply unsympathetic and making them palatable for a mainstream audience, made them feel more like real people to me. It kind of has that mask thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, I feel like
It's a little bit like what we were talking about with Constantine, except I didn't think that movie had to go as far in that direction as it did.
yeah. No, I feel like Millar makes a few choices in the book where I'm like, I don't really need that. I'm fine with it being different for the movie.
There's definitely some just shock factor for the sake of it.
Yeah, there is
with
some of that,
Millar, and that's about half of what he writes. He
Yeah.
doesn't always do that, but very often, especially with his creator-owned stuff, he does.
But then I feel like Kick-Ass 2, one of its biggest issues is that it goes too far away from that, where like it feels like the most censored version of that idea, like to the point where like it'll make jokes about it, and I'm like you just removed the teeth, like.
You mean the comic?
No, the movie,
The
like
movie,
as an
yeah.
adaptation, like where something really bad will happen in the book, and the movie will be like, "Oh, this bad thing's about to happen." JK, LOL, isn't that funny? And I'm like, well, no. Like, you have no stakes now.
And that's still not anything like the biggest problem with that movie.
I mean, that movie's got a lot of issues.
It's got a lot.
It's got a lot of issues.
Oh man. Okay. Well, should we move on?
Yes. What is your number 5, sir?
My number 5 is Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, okay. Nice.
It made my top 5. We've talked about that movie ad nauseum.
We talked about it a lot even last time.
Everybody knows how obsessed I am with that movie. And that ages like a fine wine, man. Like it's better every time you see it. And is very related to another movie that is higher on my list, and everybody's waiting for where that place is going to place. But I guess I just really like early Batman stories. That's part of it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. Well, and you're more of a year one guy to Dark Knight Returns, right?
Yeah, and I never think of myself as preferring like origin or proto Batman stories, but you think about like a lot of my favorite things, and they end up being those like kind of early years of Batman, because what I love about that character is how like driven and confident, pushing himself he always is, and how skilled and experienced he is. But then a lot of the stories I like are watching him get to that place.
When your favorite Arkham game is Origins too.
That's not true. No, and the origin stuff that happens in that is pretty shoddy. Story wise, like I hate the Batman and Joker get their yin yang, the other side of the coin relationship in 12 hours over an evening. Like, no, that was painful.
Yeah, it's not great.
And there's some fun stuff in that game. Don't get me wrong, but story wise, it needed Paul Dini, and yet it's still better written than the Night is.
Absolutely. I wish it was also available. Like we keep re-releasing the that trilogy, but that one gets no love.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Well, that needs to get remastered so that we can fix some bugs that were never fixed with that.
Hmm.
Like, all
Yeah.
you have to do is clear up the couple of places where it's really easy to get lost or the game just breaks.
Hmm.
And, I mean, maybe they patched some stuff, like, after I played it. I'm not sure. But I feel like the biggest issues with that game are pretty easy to just go back and fix. And then
Yeah,
re-release
I
it.
would imagine so.
Austin, yeah, we've already kind of said our 5 cents on Mask of the Phantasm. What is your number
Yeah. Though we
four,
do have a
Austin?
super chat about it.
Oh goodness, let's go ahead and read that. Chewbacca's Lover, $5 super chat. What happens in an alternate universe where Mask of the Phantasm is a huge box office smash? How does it influence animation and other Batman films? That's a
Like I
great
said last
question.
time, if we lived in a world where that did really well, and then uh, Zombie Island got a theatrical release and did really well, we'd live in like the best timeline for animation.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Do you think it would have forced the live action movies to be a little smarter and a little less cartoonish? Like, do you think they would have gone in less of a like trying to be more like 60s Batman plays, which is so ironic because the whole point of 89 was to be the antithesis to that. And then as it goes along, it's just getting campier and campier.
is that's after Forever, right?
No, it's after Returns. It's the same year as Returns.
Oh, okay, then yeah, I don't think we go Gampy. I was trying to remember because I'm like, if it's after Forever, we there is a chance we still go later, but we maybe don't go as far. But
Yeah.
if after Returns, like I think, yeah, we probably just get more character focused.
No, that's what I was going to say is Forever was too much of a phenomenon. Uh,
Exactly.
but if Mask of the Phantasm had been a like a giant box office success, what I think might have happened is if Schumacher still got the job, he might have had a little bit more leeway to make something uh, a little darker and to take more chances with it. Like he might have been able to make his straight up year one film,
Hmm.
which
And I
is what
mean,
he
it is
wanted to do.
possible too that they go, well, that was like a kids movie. Like that doesn't really impact what we're doing.
I think it
Uh,
kind of depends on what the reviews looked like and if adults showed up for it. Like
mhm,
if they had a good enough sense that people were going without their children,
mhm.
maybe. But yeah, it's really hard to say. You're absolutely right because that was such a heyday for Disney. Also, they could have just been like, well, okay, that's a kids movie, um, and they might not have even been like Warner's might not have even been thinking very much about the content of it, right?
Yeah, one, it's hard to say too,
And so,
because
ironically, we have to make the live action version feel more like a cartoon than the cartoon.
well, that's what I was gonna say. It's also hard to tell because it being a kids film is like part of why they have to dial it back after Returns.
Yeah,
So who knows?
it's really hard to say if that would have made much of an impact.
Maybe that's the dimension where Burden gets to do the third film, but they're like kind of like a hawk over him.
Yeah, I feel like you could have had almost exactly the same history you did, or it could have gone totally different.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a complete coin toss.
Yeah, exactly.
Austin, what is your number four?
My number four is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Wow, okay. I'm not calling your list very well.
In
And
a
we
lot
still
of
haven't
ways,
gotten your weird curveball.
no, not yet. We're close.
Crazy.
We're close. No, I mean I've probably talked about Guardians 2 at nauseum, but like it's kind of my perfect Marvel film. And I mean, it's my favorite Marvel film altogether. I can say that, I think, at this point. At number 4, this is the highest Marvel film I have.
Sure.
Um, yeah, I mean,
I
I
figured that.
think. What's that,
Like,
sorry?
I figured that. Like, if Iron Man wasn't higher than it, nothing else was going to be.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Although Howard the Duck maybe should have been, but that's another a question for another day. Uh,
Well, you
no, I
clearly
mean
didn't just
it's
have cold feet where you're afraid of what people would say if you put Howard the Duck that high, considering some of your other placements.
yeah. I really don't know what I was thinking when I put it so low. What did I put it at again? Um,
It was 30 something, maybe 20 something. Maybe it was even lower than that.
29. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, it should be a lot higher. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's in a lot of ways like the perfect Marvel film for me in that it's very much just character focused. Like we just hang out with those characters. As Kurt Russell is the villain, and I love everything Kurt Russell. He's perfect as ego, and I have a little bit of comedy issue in like the first 20 minutes, but after that it settles out, and like it takes off so high that like I can't even really hold that against it too much for my overall enjoyment.
It still has the only scene in a Marvel movie that made me tear up almost every time I saw it.
Oh, it's got like genuinely one of the best deaths in all of comic book films,
That does
and
not
just
have the
a
third act
beautiful ending.
problem. That is a killer third act.
Oh, it's got a dynamite third act, possibly one of the best of the MCU, if
I'll
not
agree with that, and I don't even like
the
that movie as
best.
well as you do. That's great. Just all those moving pieces. It's really impressive how all that is kept straight.
Mhm. No, and it's
Like the
the most
sovereign battle is actually really cool. And
yeah, and everything inside Ego is really cool. That is without a doubt the best looking MCU film, if not just Marvel film altogether. Like that is a pretty movie.
yeah, it's definitely up there.
Mhm. Uh, just, just there's just so many shots like throughout, and just it's so colorful. And
Well, and from the very beginning, like the technical achievement that opening credits is.
mhm. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I didn't think that they could really top the first movie's credits, and I don't think they do. But like, it comes close. Like, they are really good.
They do as a technical achievement though.
Yeah, I mean that's very true.
And of course, the way music is used in that is wonderful, and it has, at this point, to me, as good of a soundtrack as the first movie. And I didn't have that for the longest time, but I'm finding myself going back to that a lot more now. I probably said this when we brought it up before.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the first moment I heard it, like I think Guardians 2 is the best soundtrack of the three. Uh, it doesn't really have a track that I don't like. They're all really good, and it has the awesome David Hasselhoff song.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and I was a little disappointed when we got to 3 that they didn't make a track for that, but it's okay.
I'm going to backtrack for a second because Hot Soup had a comment earlier saying he's never understood people's love for RoboCop. Go back to RoboCop.
Sorry, you like broke my brain. How do you not like RoboCop?
Well, I don't think he's saying RoboCop's bad, but it's just like, how does it wind up like, that high on a best of list?
The perfect movie.
Well, and that's a thing that took me a couple of viewings to like for the satire to really wash over me, Ryan. I don't know, like I got it on an intellectual level, and then I really appreciated both the like character tragedy of it and what it had to say about how society is collectively losing its humanity. Like all of that just clicked in
Mhm.
on another viewing.
No, and it has such a strong command of tone that you can have the Ed 209 scene and then the death of Alex Murphy, like almost back to back. And they're almost the exact same thing of like a guy getting blown away, and you have a completely different reaction. Or one of them is one of the funniest things ever put on film, and the other is like genuinely horrifying.
Yeah, and then that makes his plight uh, like so like sad and sorry, it's getting late. My brain's not working.
That's okay.
Uh,
We're almost there. We're almost there.
but yeah, that makes him so much more sympathetic and that makes him so much more endearing when you get the little flashes of personality and humanity through it. And we've talked about this a lot, but it's also just such a tight movie.
Hmm.
The way that gets in and out, that is a master class in uh, like scene organization,
Hmm.
in
No,
story
it's so
structure.
tightly put together. It's like RoboCop himself wrote it.
Yeah, that's a good call too. Right? Yeah, because it's all about efficiency.
Yeah, and I mean Ed 209 is my favorite character in all of film. He's perfect. I love everything about him. Uh, even you can complain that it's stop motion and it doesn't look real, like it looks dated, but it's got such a charm to it. It's so
I was gonna say
beautiful.
that's the charm.
Yeah.
Okay, Austin, it's really interesting that you and I both put our top MCU movie at number four. Uh,
Fascinating.
that we both put our peak MCU movies at four. My number four is Captain America: Winter Soldier,
Yeah, of
which
course.
everybody knew was going to be in my top five.
Mhm. No, I
And
mean, makes sense.
the thing that I still kind of, for lack of a better word, marvel at with Winter Soldier is, and just my kind of weird obsession with it is I'm not really an espionage spy thriller guy, and that's one of those movies that I. I think I appreciate more because it's so good it makes me feel like a fan of that stuff while I'm watching it. It doesn't even make me want to delve that hard more into that genre. It's just while I'm watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I'm a big spy thriller guy. And then I finish it, and I'm like, no, I'm not. Like it's
Mhm.
like it's just it's hard to explain. It's like I shouldn't be as big of a fan of this as I am because that's not my genre. But like that's how good it is. So I always appreciate movies like that. Um,
Absolutely. I don't think I told you about this the other day, but I was just scrolling online and I saw two clips from the new film. One of them is I won't spoil anything. This isn't like a big spoilery thing, I don't think, but I'll keep it vague. So one of them was Sam Wilson like running up, and he does the kick from Civil War where he like jumps forward and like kicks them. And then the other one is the shield's on the ground and he like kicks it up, jumps and like kicks it into somebody. And people are like, oh, like they really kept up the action of Captain America. And I was just thinking about it and I was like, I remember when Winter Soldier came out and the Russos talked so much about how their take on Captain America, like they really thought out the way that he moves and the way that he fights and the way that he uses the shield. And the fact that he was like more so like a kicker was like a big part of it. And I was
yeah,
just kind of like, oh, they just did it because that's what the other films did. But like there was thought put into it with the other ones.
yeah.
And I just had this moment of like, yeah, like we've really dropped from where we were with Winter Soldier. Like it's kind of crazy. Not that I'm saying that that's why that movie doesn't work or anything, but it was just that level of thought that I was like, oh, we don't really have anymore.
No, the the scene in the theater that made me realize that I was looking at something I real unusual and that was a lot more thoughtful than it had to be is the fight with Batroc the Leaper.
Oh yeah, that part's awesome.
Because I should be laughing at the fact that Batroc the Leaper is even in a movie,
Yeah.
and that he's leaping.
Yeah, if that movie hasn't won you over by the time that he jumps onto that boat,
It's
You,
probably not going to.
it's probably not going to. I had like a similar thing. Like for me, it was like right when he gets on, but like absolutely that part with Backtrack, I'm like, oh, this movie's gonna be great. Like this is a huge step up.
It's the it's the boat, and then after that, the other chance it has at really grabbing your attention, I guess, if it doesn't get it there, is Nick Fury's car getting shot up.
Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
one of the most surprising and thrilling moments in a superhero movie for me.
And genuinely tense. Like even
Always
now, like
gets me.
it's so well done.
Yeah, the uh, the the suspense and the tension in that movie is wonderful. The way it constantly keeps you guessing, and then I've gone on and on in other videos about how interesting that movie is thematically, and how again, it doesn't feel self-important. It just feels like kind of important. That felt like a movie we sort of needed right then. In being a big summer blockbuster, a lot of people were going to go to that had, uh, thoughts about. Um, I am so tired right now.
No, I mean, I agree. I agree with that because you have Avengers, which is a fun film, but like it's not really about anything. And then you have Iron Man 3, which is, but a lot of people didn't like it. It was very divisive. And then you had Thor: The Dark World, which isn't, and also people didn't like it. So I think the fact that you get Winter Soldier then, and then obviously Guardians after it as well, like the kind of two back to back, I do think that was really important for the success of them moving forward.
Yeah, and we've talked about how that movie builds on the ideas that were there in Avengers in real smart ways.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I like how like kind of tragic of a character Steve is. You know how much I love uh, like superhero characters that get set in their ways and refuse to change. Like that's a guy who has kind of had his world shattered twice in a way, right?
Mhm.
Because he gets trapped in the ice. He gets stuck in a world that is more cynical than the one that he remembers. But he thinks that he can still trust the people he works for. And then he finds out that that's not the case in Avengers. And then it turns out that it's not even just powerful people that are abusing their power, but it's the the evil that he was fighting in the 40s has actually like taken over the institutions that he believed in, uh, and he still refuses to lose himself. It's wonderful.
Mhm. No, absolutely. And I mean, I think, I mentioned it when I brought it up. Like, I do think there is a level where I'm like, I don't think it's as good as a lot of people do, but at the same time, like, it's still like right at the top of the MCU. Like, it's such a good movie.
Yeah, this is what I started to say earlier. The
Mhm.
freedom versus security question ends up being kind of the crux of Marvel in general by the time you get to Winter Soldier, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we've kind of gotten away from that idea. And I mean, you could argue that it had kind of set its piece and didn't have anything left to say about that. But like, as the MCU has kind of floundered and it doesn't seem to, be as thoughtful and have a lot to say about anything anymore. Like it, it acts like it does. It maybe thinks it does, but it's not. It's not making me think, that hard about things like it used to. I don't think it's a coincidence that we've kind of dropped that. That hit
Yeah,
its
for
peak with
sure.
Civil War, and then I guess you can say that it reaches kind of its ultimate conclusion in a way with Thanos, where your freedom versus security question goes all the way to, well, let's just get rid of a bunch of people, which is in order to save everybody that's left, which in a way I guess is what Hydra was doing with aiming its guns at everybody that it doesn't like. The difference is Thanos is indiscriminate about it, which almost makes him seem more noble, I guess.
And then don't worry, because Doctor Doom will be about destroying universes instead of people. So
Oh
it'll be
yeah,
an evolution.
but then he'll just feel like a ripoff of Thanos when he's like, let's get rid of half the multiverse.
Well, no, he's gonna be like, let's get rid of all of the multiverse and just have one battle planet, battle world.
You don't think they'll bring him in and just essentially make him the anti-monitor, do you? Because I have a little bit of a worry that Doomsday and Secret Wars are just gonna basically be an adaptation of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I will be shocked if the big cliffhanger isn't the multiverse is destroyed to some degree and everybody's stuck on Battle World.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they'll do.
I'll be shocked, but I mean we'll see. And it's gonna be really weird because there won't be a Beyonder because that'll be too cosmic.
Austin, what is actually remind me? Where did Winter Soldier make it on your list? Have we
Winter
talked about this
Soldier,
already?
yeah, Winter Soldier was my 22.
Oh, okay. Well, apologies. I'm wasting everybody's time again.
No, you're okay.
There's so much else I could say about that. It's all coming back to me. That's also a movie I haven't watched in a long time. And real quick, I was also going to say that I think another reason that I'm still so in love with that movie is that it actually took me a while to get there. That's another movie kind of like RoboCop where it didn't click in right away. That for the MCU anyway, that is kind of a heady movie, and I was first time out I kind of just let it wash over me, and I was like, that's a really interesting movie tonally, but like it didn't speak to me the way it did after a second and a third viewing.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I can understand that. Like, it is definitely one of those movies.
I didn't feel like I could even wrap my head around it and think too much about it until I saw it again because again it keeps you guessing the way it does. Like I was so shocked by the Hydra reveal, I wasn't even really thinking about what it was saying about anything.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's probably their best twist they've come up with.
And
Uh,
I also really like what that movie looks like, except for all the really bad green screen. Because
yeah,
unfortunately, some of the worst green screen in the MCU is in that movie.
yeah, especially when they're looking at the helicarrier.
Oh, it's rough.
It's pretty bad.
But I love how moody that movie is. Like that's an example of bleak color palette done really well.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it helps the cap suit like pop a little bit more.
Okay, what's your number three?
My number three is the best film that I watched in preparation for this.
Oh, so a thing you hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I think I'd never seen before, and it blew my mind. And I was like, "This is maybe one of the greatest things I've ever seen." I
This
enjoy
isn't going to be a
this.
movie I've never seen, is it?
No, it is, and it's a movie I mentioned to you before. Like when I watched it, and I was immediately like, "Oh, I'm gonna be on an island." That I love this movie this much. My number three is Dr. Mordred.
Oh, it's that high. Crazy. Yeah, I guess I should have been wondering where that was because we have talked a little bit about Dr. Mordred here and there. How is that three, though?
Because it is the greatest film ever. It is not only the best Doctor Strange film, but it is possibly one of my favorite B movies. I adore it so
That's
much.
hilarious.
And when I first, heard about it, I was like, okay, Jeffrey Combs is a weird casting choice for that. That's going to be strange. And he completely won me over. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's really good at it.
Yeah. All of the magic stuff in it is so fun. It's obviously like a low budget film, but
I
I
don't
think they
remember
do
it super well. I haven't seen it in 8 or 9 years
yeah,
now.
yeah. But I think they do an amazing job making it feel bigger than it actually is. They have like a really strong command of their budget with that, and it's just immensely entertaining.
Well, and it feels like a more traditional Doctor Strange movie than the MCU movie, even though they didn't have the rights to that, because that gets changed into a different thing at the 11th hour, because they thought they were going to have the rights to Doctor Strange. So
Mhm.
it has an actual Clea and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and it's got a Mordo and an ancient one and all this stuff. And one of the strangest choices, which is that his Sanctum Sanctorum is in an apartment building and he's a landlord. But I think that's
Oh yeah,
genuinely like
I
a
forgot
fun
about that.
idea.
Yeah, it's too bad they never made a sequel to that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a sequel could have been awesome, but we're not going to get it now.
I'm trying to
And
remember that wasn't made as a TV pilot, was it?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I know there is like a Doctor Strange thing like that Doctor Strange movie from the 70s.
That's right. I was sitting here trying to remember if that was two different projects. It is though.
I almost watched that. I watched like 10 minutes and I was like, this is going to be really boring. So I
Yeah,
turned it
it
off.
is. Now that I haven't seen that, but it's been forever.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, in
I'm
fact,
excited to watch that with you though. That'll be fun.
oh yeah, no, I am incredibly excited to do that on Rewind because that is a perfect movie. What is your number three?
Well, my top three I'll easily be able to blow past because A, we've already talked about them, and B, no one will be all that surprised. Although I don't know if people will be able to call the order necessarily, but my number three is X2.
Which means that's going to be 89 Begins.
Well, you'll just have to see. You'll just have to see. But yeah, X2. I've been a little bit more critical of in recent years, I guess. I think I lobbed some criticisms at it. I hadn't really thought about when you and I did the commentary on it, but it is still this high because I go back to it a lot, and it was such a important formative thing. Uh, for me, I don't even think I was that big of a Wolverine fan before that movie.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of one of those films that if you weren't really into Wolverine, you probably are after that.
Yeah, or you're just not gonna like X-Men anymore.
Yeah, or you just hate X-Men.
Like if you don't care about Weapon X, you don't like the way they handle that. I love how mysterious that whole thing is. I love how easy it would have been for them to just jump into flashback mode. I love that they don't do that. Wolverine's relationship with Stryker is endlessly fascinating to me. Well, I should say more Stryker's thematic relationship with Magneto and Xavier, of course. And a lot of the sets are really neat in that movie. I really like what that looks like. And everybody knows why I love X2. And everybody knows that 50% of it is John Ottman's score. And it's the movie they should have made in the first place.
Can you start with X2 though?
Not really. I just mean something more like that. They're
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
they're just that first movie is almost nothing but character introductions. Like they're so timid and worried to try to tell any kind of story.
Yeah.
But their characterizations, particularly for Magneto and
Xavier.
yeah, I don't know why I can't think of character. Rogue is really good in that.
Oh, yeah.
Um, put it pretty high on my list just because the last time I wrote about it, I had a lot of like I had a lot of interesting. God, I can't even talk right now.
I know we're falling off fast.
Yeah, I am falling off a cliff here, man. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I was just gonna say like I had a lot of analysis of character stuff before like I mean character is part of story, but any
And
actual
Nicholas Photos is
events
Nightcrawler.
that happen in that movie. But anyway,
Yeah, I mean, that is a great film, and we talked about it with the Rewind, but it does such a good job of being really big but small at the same time.
yeah, yeah, the idea that it doesn't feel like a world-destroying threat, but like it obviously is. Like you know, when you get to Alkali Lake at the end, it's like nobody knows that that's happening, but you're seeing. I mean, it's like Thanos level stakes, right? Like
Mm.
I mean, not for the universe, but for Earth. Like you've got, you know, at one point all of the humans are about to die, and at one point all the mutants are about to die, but it's not like big light in the sky, and you don't have to keep cutting to news footage.
You just cut to two crippled men. It's beautiful.
It's a pretty cool setting.
Yeah, and one of those places, where their take on Mastermind is like almost nothing like Mastermind. Same with Stryker, but it really works for the story they're telling.
Yeah, like Stryker is is an inspired choice. What would it have been like if he had been a preacher in that?
I
Like
don't
if they
know.
just do like God Loves Man Kills, would that have performed? Would that have worked? Could they do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I've talked to a few people on our Discord recently where I was like, I really thought when we saw Giancarlo Esposito in the Captain America trailer and we knew it was going to be about adamantium, I was like, he looks like a generic soldier. I would not be shocked if he's just their Stryker.
That would have been cool. Instead, he
And
was kind of thrown away.
yeah, and they were like, well, if we do Stryker again, he really should be the priest. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. It would be interesting to see that if we ever bring him back. But I also think the MCU will probably just run with that Stryker.
If they
if
ever
they
even do him.
If they ever do him, exactly.
Austin, what is your number two?
My number two, we don't have to talk about pretty much at all because we already have. It's RoboCop,
Yeah, I figured that would be pretty high on your list.
which I think is probably the best film on my list. But
But it's not your
yeah,
favorite.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we already talked about that. It's not perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I cheer like a schoolgirl whenever Ed 209 blows people away. I love it. It's a great film.
Yeah,
And Clarence Boddicker is like one of the best villains in all of cinema.
well, it's funny because I've never really had that.
Oh, okay.
Like, he's real serviceable for that movie. I find myself kind of more interested in the corporate villain in that.
Oh, Dick Jones. I mean, you're
But
not wrong.
I'm also like already a fan of that actor before I see that movie.
But part of the magic of RoboCop is every single villain is memorable. Like
That's
even
true.
even when you get to the henchmen, like they all have some sort of like little quirk, except for the first guy that dies. Like there's the one that's got like the goofy laugh. There's the one that see, even just saying that, you're like, oh yeah, I know that guy. There's the one that becomes the Toxic Avenger.
That's right.
Like they all have something.
Yeah,
that
you didn't
are
see that
memorable
coming.
about them.
That makeup is crazy.
Oh, it's so good, and the way he just explodes on Clarence Boddicker's car is awesome.
Well, you gotta love the two different levels that you can enjoy that movie on, because you go to kind of your and like I'm not calling you like a not deep thinker or whatever, but like immediately you want to talk about the kind of B movie aspects of that movie.
Mhm. Well,
And
mostly because you brought up the sci-fi stuff. Like
oh sure, yeah.
that is a big part of why that movie works. Uh, we just already touched on that, so I'm like, I'll throw out some of the B movie sides of it that are also really great.
Yeah, because I'm struggling not to just go back to like, existentialism. And
Yeah, no, that is the reason why the movie is this high. Like, if it was just the B movie aspects, it would not be that high. Coming as a person who put Dr. Mordred as number 3, but still.
well, we talked about this with Toxic Avenger. I That's hilarious, Austin. About how RoboCop like sounds like it should be like a Toxic Avenger level B movie.
Yeah, like that's part of the magic of RoboCop is that it's genuinely a great sci-fi movie, but it sounds like it should be just like a cheap B movie.
Yeah, it's deceptive in that way.
Mhm.
And if you're just throwing your popcorn back and you like to turn your brain off, you can watch it like one of those.
Yeah, when you mentioned Ottman with X2, that score is also a big part of why RoboCop works
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
and that's one of the greatest themes of all time.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
RoboCop also has one of the best sidekicks in anything. We didn't talk about her.
Yeah, yeah, Lewis is awesome, and then gets nothing to do in the sequels.
Yeah, which sucks. But I've always been really interested in kind of the gender stuff with that.
hmm Absolutely.
Robert says Toxic Avenger versus RoboCop would be a great crossover, or meets RoboCop would be a great crossover.
That would be a great crossover. Put the mop down. You're coming with me. I don't think so, RoboCop. I am a sentient being. I have committed no crime.
Well, unless I just haven't been paying any attention, it looks like all we're gonna have left to talk about is Batman. My number two.
I don't know what you're talking about.
My number two is Batman Begins.
Oh, okay. I really thought that was going to be a number one, but I mean, that makes sense.
It could have gone either direction, and I still
Yeah.
say Batman Begins is, to me, the greatest superhero movie ever made. I don't think anything's really topped it. I keep waiting for that viewing of the Batman where I decide that it's above it, and they're also such different things, which I really like. About both of those movies respectively, but Begins is one of those things that just like, it spoke to me the way it spoke to me when I first saw it, and I was younger and impressionable, and I mean I was in college, but I'm still like, I don't know what, 19, 20 when that movie comes out, and the the meditation on fear and how it both cripples and motivates was endlessly fascinating to me, and that was during a period where I was starting to get really into like literary analysis and all the stuff that I would later do on the old Superhero Rewind show, and I didn't really expect a superhero movie to make me want to go to those analytical places. And so that's a lot of why that's always ranked so high for me. But I used to put it at the top of even favorites lists, and I think the problem is just like I've gotten so ridiculous in my constant watching and discussing of my actual number one that it seems wrong to not put it at the top. And it's more formative earlier.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Begins is a lot of fun, and it's got one of the best tie-in games. It was a great time to be a Batman fan.
Yeah, it really was. Well, and you don't get the Arkham games without that game.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm also starting to get to that point where I'm like, oh, I also have like nothing to say.
Austin, throw out your number one. We all know what it is by this point.
Okay, my number one is Howard the Duck.
Hey, you can't put it on there twice.
I mean, it's Howard the Duck, of course I can. It became something else.
His number one is Howard the Duck 2.
Yeah, my number one is the Batman. It's like I said, RoboCop I would say is a better movie, but at the same time, like I don't know. Also, ranking superhero films, I'm like I feel like that also helped nudge the Batman over. I don't know. It's a perfect Batman film. Like it's everything I ever wanted in a Batman movie, really.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that your number one is that recent.
Yeah,
Something came out that would fly all the way to the top. Like my entire top 10 is at least a decade old, and most of it more than that.
yeah, and I mean you have that. You have Guardians 3. I mean the Suicide Squad's a little older now, and then Dr. Mordred I didn't see till last year.
Yeah, the Suicide Squad's still not even a decade old.
Nope, 2021. Yeah, it's only a year.
No, that's a year younger than
before
the Batman.
Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess that's a nice thing. You don't have this with 2024, but in my top 10, you have a film from 21, 22, 23. Hopefully this year gets it back with Superman. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully so. Well, and like I'd love it if that could happen with Fantastic Four, but
Yeah, hopefully.
Dan Schneider, $5 super chat. Thanks. He says the Batman Begins game really demonstrates how different that movie looks from Dark Knight. It really had its own unique aesthetic and flavor, didn't it? Though.
Yeah, well, I'm sad we didn't get the Dark Knight game because I know they worked on it and they did all the recording for it.
Yeah. No, they were pretty far in development with that.
Hmm. Yeah, it was basically going to be Begins, but open world with the Bat Pod you could drive around in.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Hmm.
But yeah, a lot of that is because they actually built all of that city in a warehouse, and so it feels a lot more, um, stylized and removed from reality.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
They did some location stuff, but a lot of it they built.
Yeah, and I mean, I do have that thing with Begins where it's like the Narrows is like what I want, and then outside of it is still just like Chicago. Not to the same degree as Dark Knight, but like a little bit. While the Batman, I think, kind of splits the difference, where the best Gotham is probably still Burton, visually on film, and I think Reeves does a really good job of making it look like a city that actually exists, but it's not really like a city you can pinpoint. It's like, okay, this definitely looks like a major city, but like I'm not going like, oh, well, it's this place.
And that's smart if you're gonna try to, like you said, split the middle and make it like gritty and comic stylized, but also have references to real world things and have like modern social media and all of that. Like
Hmm.
that's the one place where I kind of disagree with Reeves. I wouldn't have done that stuff, but I think it's probably smart for a modern audience to to find the whole world more relatable. It's just it's very easy for me to accept a Batman or really any universe that isn't bogged down by social media because I remember a world without that. But you've got kids growing up now that don't know the world apart from that, and so I get why he's got that. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, having Batman beat up Penguin, who has TikTok downloaded onto his phone, really just adds like an extra layer, I think, of why it works. You're like, this guy has TikTok downloaded. Batman's gonna kick his ass.
it's hilarious. But yeah, like I think he does the best he possibly can in making that feel as timeless a world as it can and still have references to TikTok. Like that shouldn't work. It kind of doesn't, but it nearly does.
Mhm. Well, it helps that like that specifically is only in Penguin, so like it's not like you're seeing Batman deal with TikTok because that
Well,
would
no,
be
that's fair.
weirder. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
But
It's
his
nice that
movie has still got like social media and modern technology and stuff.
no, of course, it's got the lenses from Court of the Owls that like record everything he does. Like it is a more advanced like tech world, while also being very like torn down from some of that stuff. Where we're back to the Batmobile is just a car.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
they're writing that line really nice where it doesn't feel like he's relying so much on that technology that he doesn't uh know what he's doing.
mhm. No, and it has one of my favorite things we've done with Batman in a long time, which is uh, he's got like really loud boots when he walks around, and it's like part of his like fear tactic is that like
Why
you
is the
always know
Batman
that
your
he's
number one?
coming.
Because he's got loud
He's got
boots.
loud boots. These boots are made for kicking ass, and that's what they'll do. Uh, no, I think that's a really cool like horror-y take. Like obviously they're looking at that stuff where he's got like the Dracula cowl on his on his suit and whatnot, and the Batmobile sequence is just Christine. Um, like all of that, I think is really cool and something that I was like really deeply missing in Batman on film.
Well, and you were talking earlier about movies that like the Suicide Squad that feel real comic book. Uh,
Mhm.
that and in the way they're structured, that does the same thing. That feels like a 12 issue maxi series to me.
Yeah. Well, and like I said when we did the commentary, it's also a film where it's you can see the exact issue breaks where it's like
Yeah,
this is the issue where Catwoman's gonna kind of take over as the villain. This is the issue where the Penguin's the villain. This is the issue where Carmine's the villain, and then the Riddler is just what ties it all together. And I really hope that Reeves continues that with his sequels, and I think he will. Like, I don't think that we'll have a Homecoming thing
I don't
where
either.
a lot of what we like about it is kind of dropped in the
Well, I think
sequel.
that whole thing is really intentional. Like, I don't think it just happens to break down that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think that's absolutely how he was trying to structure it, and like I think that's kind of like a perfect way to adapt stuff like this. Like, we're not going to be sitting around going like, "Oh man, like Batman got to fight like two people and then the franchise is over." Like, uh, he's finding ways to put all of these characters in it from the beginning. And one of the things that a lot of us, like about Batman villains is getting to see them interact off each other too. And it's a way to have
And he's
that.
doing that, yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure you'll agree, we'd love to be getting that sequel earlier than we're getting it.
Mhm.
Uh, it's nice that we had the Penguin, I guess, but I guess the double-edged sword for me with the Batman is because it's 3 hours, it's able to uh, accomplish so much more than something like Homecoming would, where you really need that next movie to come out in 2 years, and you really need it to like be pushing things forward, or your character's going to get too old. But then the problem with it being that long and that meaty is it's 3 hours, and like I just don't have time to watch it all the time. Like it's so long.
Yeah, no, people were saying that when we were talking about Dark Knight, where it's like Dark Knight's less of a commitment. But I don't know, for me, like I don't have that. Like I think the Batman's like 15 minutes longer than the Dark Knight, and it's not like endless speechifying. Like I feel like I'm actually watching more of a story and characters doing things as opposed to being spoken to. And again, I like the Dark Knight a lot, but like this is so much more my speed. And if it's not, like I fully understand that. But even like release time. That's it's getting late. Runtime, it's not that much longer.
Yeah, I mean it's at least half an hour longer.
Well, Dark Knight's what, like 240?
No, it's like 220.
Is it only
Yeah,
220?
it feels
Okay, I was.
longer, and
I think
I
that's what it
thought
is
that for
then.
the longest time, but it's not. It's like I'll double check it.
Well, here I can pull
But
it up
back
quick.
then, we just didn't make superhero movies that were longer than 2 hours. So any of them that were, it felt a lot
Okay,
longer.
yeah. Well, it's about 2.5.
It's 2:30. It's 2:32.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Batman is half an hour longer than that. But yeah, Austin. Honestly, this is just a me problem. Like I'm just complaining about the state of life I'm in these days. Where like I just don't have time to watch a 3 hour movie much of the time. It's really just runtime. It's not that it feels too long.
Mhm.
If this
Yeah,
were
and I'm
10 years ago, it's not like I'm sitting around watching The Dark Knight that much either. Like,
Mhm.
and that's
Oh,
also a movie that's too dark to have on around my most of my kids.
mhm.
So like I need a 3 hour block after everybody goes to bed.
Yeah, of course.
And what I'm usually doing is this. So
Mhm.
anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's why I haven't watched it more than I have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like that's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Hot Soup says it's 15 minutes longer than Rises. That's probably what I'm thinking of, I guess. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
because
of that
Rises
runtime.
is longer and unnecessarily so. But yeah, I mean, I like the way I was gonna say I like the way the Batman takes its time, but I mean, it also uh, is like I said, real meaty. It's got a lot of characters. It's got a lot of threads. It's got a very complex mystery plot,
Mhm.
and but it it feels like you're getting to live with those characters, and like there's a lot of real downtime. It it's got a bit of a kind of old school Hollywood feel in that way, where like it's not rushing. It's expecting you to like really pay attention to it, and it's wanting the audience to do some work. Like that's not a passive movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not even really concerned about, making sure we have like a ton of action. Like it is much more of a detective film, and that you'll get long stretches without any real action.
Yeah, well, what we were missing with Batman movies before that was detective, and then for the most part, the kind of noir side or like neo noir side, and the Batman brings that back. 89 had it superficially,
Hmm.
in the look and the tone and the feel of it, and then the Batman gives you that more substantially.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it sets
Even
us.
though 89 is my number one.
Oh my God.
So shocking.
No way. You're fooling.
It would have felt kind of weird to be doing weekly commentaries on the same movie, and that's
Yeah.
not at the top.
Like it's not, so I did the Howard the Duck thing. It's not funny if you do it a second time, okay? We know it's Iron Man 2. Okay, so Iron Man 2 works really well because
I can't finish that sentence. Iron Man 2 works really well because Whiplash has no motivation past the first act. Whiplash.
because he's got two cool electrical whips.
Nicholas Bodo says Jason falling in love with the Batman like I fell in love with 89 as a kid is beautiful. Yeah, it's been fun to see that. And you saw how much he adored Penguin.
Oh yeah.
I've
No,
never
he
seen
really
Jason
loved
gush
that.
that hard about anything.
Hmm. And I mean, the Penguin is really good. I don't know. It's hard to say because, like, in some ways, I think it's better than the Batman, but at the same time, I definitely like the Batman over the Penguin. But a lot of that's just, I don't know. It's going to be hard to convince me that a Penguin show is better than like the Batman
Yeah,
movie
well,
I've
it was
always
just
been waiting for.
yeah, what's the character that you'd rather follow? Like if you're gonna have a Penguin show, that's the best that could ever be.
Yeah.
And I still think it might be the best piece of at least TV media we've ever gotten out of comics.
Hmm. No, I agree. Um, and it just makes me so excited to see him kick Penguin's ass in the next movie. I can't wait. Both for watching TikTok and for just the events of that show.
How dare you murder? Yeah, how dare you set uh, a 20 something kid on fire before he had a chance to finish his back tattoo?
Yeah, no, I
How
need
dare
there to
you?
be. There needs to be a scene in the Batman 2 where the Penguin is complaining about how many pickles he has on his sandwich. Then Batman comes in, kicks his ass like completely cripples him, and then goes, "Nah, but you're right about that pickle thing. That does suck."
That's great. I still want my Catwoman spinoff. Um,
Yeah, I'm shocked. There's been no real talk about it. I don't know. Maybe I think Kravitz has been like pretty busy with other stuff. Like
I
I
was
know
gonna
she
say I don't know
directed
if
the
they could
film
get that
out
actress to do
last year.
to do an 8 episode show or whatever, but that
I mean, you could make a movie.
the Catwoman Batman, yeah, and that'd be great too. Relationship was one of the big things I most latched onto
Hmm.
with
Yeah, and
that.
if someone that hates Batman and Catwoman is a thing, I was like, oh, I feel like this is that made for me, where it like also understands that she's still a villain and they
Yeah,
can't be a thing.
when they separate on their respective bikes at the end, like that's the thing that makes me nearly tear up every time I see that movie. Like,
Yeah, it's so good.
ah, it's great.
Yeah, that shot where he's like, there's like the little bit of sadness in his eyes as he's watching her drive away, and then his eyes flip up and it's pure determination.
Yup.
It's the perfect Batman ending, and it's also, um, I don't know if you really had this thought because I don't know when the last time you read it was, but last time I reread it, I was like, oh my God, this is the Batman. It is like just the ending of Zero Year, but I think even better.
Oh, good call. Yeah, I haven't read that in a long time. Well,
Yeah,
didn't we review it like a couple years ago?
no, I think you reviewed it with Dan. No, we did do it. No,
No,
what
you
am
and
I
I did
talking
it.
about? Sorry, it's late, and I'm thinking of when you and Dan did Court of the
I was gonna
Owls.
say we
No,
did Court of
you
the
and I
Owls.
did do Zero Year.
Zero Year was the last big Snyder story, at least that anybody cares about us
That's right.
talking
That's when
about.
I read it.
That I hadn't reviewed, and somebody asked for it on request.
Yeah,
Now I've never reviewed like the Gordon Batman stuff, the Bloom stuff. I don't think outside of the single issues when they came out.
yeah,
Uh,
and I haven't read that.
that would be the last one, I guess. It might be interesting for us to do that at some point.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause the
It's not
ending.
great, but like there's cool stuff in it.
Mhm,
The weird thing is, the amnesia Bruce Wayne thing should have been stupid. It's the best thing in that book.
mhm. Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, I don't like Gordon Batman because it feels like his character is completely reimagined to make that work. Like suddenly he seems younger and like
Mhm,
he's written kind of out of character just to make that work. And
mhm.
I'm like, I don't understand even why, because you're in a robot suit,
A robot bunny suit.
a
Get
robot
out of
bunny
here,
suit.
Gordon. Tell us about the new villain in town. That's your only job.
Why do
Get
you?
out of here.
Yeah, and then anyway, I don't know why we're talking about this.
Yeah, the ending of Zero Year is the part where it's like, there's like a woman. Oh, it's Julie Madison comes up to Alfred at a party, and she's like, "Oh, is Bruce Wayne here?" And he's like, "No, he's at work." And it cuts to like Batman leaving the party to not be with her. And I was like, "Oh, this like is clearly what they're looking at with that ending." It's so good.
Well, I'm not gonna do any more justifying of '89 at the top. Everybody has heard me talk about that movie ad nauseum, and you can listen to me talk about the movie some more this coming Sunday when I do yet another '89 for '89 commentary. And Austin
Sunday,
might be on
Sunday,
that one.
Sunday. Oh yeah, we're doing our one on Sunday.
We can.
Yeah.
We haven't decided for sure yet. If we do, I'm not sure what the gimmick will be yet.
Okay, I just assumed it would be the script one, but yeah, I'm good with whatever. I wasn't sure if you wanted to do it right away because you just did one with
Because I
Robert.
just did one with Robert. Yeah, let's talk about it. I don't know yet.
Yeah, because I'm also free that day, so it should be fine either way.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Well, Austin, this has been quite a journey,
Hmm.
and sort of a waste of time because both of us are looking at these lists going, I don't even agree with this anymore. Although my top 10 I feel pretty locked in about.
Yeah. I also hope that if a supercut ever exists of this, people will look at the start and then look at the end, and it will really look like we did it all together because we're really tired at the end of this.
That's a good call. Yeah, I'm hoping at some point to put together supercuts of these, uh, which would just take a million years to
Mhm.
export.
Yeah,
Austin,
exactly.
people in the comments are saying that Snyder's Absolute Batman is apparently actually good. I'll believe that when I read it.
I've heard mixed things. I've heard the Wonder Woman one's the best of the three,
Okay.
but I don't know. And like everything that
The
comes out
Nothing
about them,
verse.
yeah, everything that comes out about the Nothing verse, I'm like, I just can't get excited about this.
It's this
Uh,
character, except they don't have any of the things that makes them that character. Okay.
well, part of the Joker in the Nothing verse, I saw. I think it was an interview with Snyder. He was like, talking about all these resources that the Joker has in the Nothing verse, and I was like, wait a minute. Is their version of the Joker in the Nothing verse, because he's always like the opposite of society, is that he has everything? Because that's
It's
beautiful.
like decadent Joker.
But I know he has one appearance where they're like, "Oh, this man, we call him the Joker because he never laughs." So there is like a bit of Nothing verse with him too.
Yeah, we've also done that with the Joker.
Yeah. When Mr. Free is Slender Man in the Nothing verse, it's very strange.
Is that Nothing verse? I thought that was. I thought that was mainstream.
No, I think they just like announced their Mr. Freeze for that. And he's like
Oh,
really
okay.
slim and like giant.
Well, I saw that picture, but I thought that was for the regular book
No, I think that's for the
for Absolute.
Nothingverse.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
'cause I think
maybe
it's like the
we'll.
cover is like Absolute Zero.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, maybe we'll have to review that at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this crazy series and get in your votes for your top 50 favorite superhero movies. Get those in by next Monday if you're watching this live or shortly after the fact. And we will, Austin will get those tallied up and we will reveal those in the not too distant future. And then start thinking about your 50 worst superhero movies because we're going to do the same thing with that.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so we're done with this, but we've still got lots of these crazy lists to do, and they've been a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
yeah, and I'm interested for you to see the audience one and to see how much things change because there's stuff in it where I'm like, I would not have guessed that, but it's cool.
Anything as crazy as the Hulk being like everybody's number two favorite superhero.
There is one thing that I felt like I was kind of on my own with that kind of everyone is going with, and I'm like, I'm very shocked by that.
Is
I'll say
Kick-Ass real
that.
high?
No, it's not that.
Okay, okay.
It's like a specific movie in a franchise being the one that people latch on to.
Uh, so yeah, folks, just check the description. The link for the form that you fill out is there, and that's a Google form, and that goes direct to Austin.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and call it a night. I've got to go to bed. It's gonna be a short week on the channel this week. Because I've got some stuff going on later in the week that I didn't know about. So we'll have a Captain Logan show on Wednesday. I don't know if we'll have time for anything else before the 89 show on Sunday. But in the meantime, we appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and thanks for sticking around for this whole 15-part series. If you've been watching very much or all of this, appreciate all of you guys, and thanks for the super chats tonight, you guys. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin the Day Ghost.
Good night, everybody. I'm sorry I didn't put Howard the Duck higher.
You should be. You should be. Bye, bye, everybody.